Welcome to Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Brought to you by our title sponsor, Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Come along with us as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. We have partnered with Mountain Tough Fitness Lab to help get you in shape and mentally stronger. Whether you're a veteran hunter or just starting out, the Mountain Tough app will take you to the next level. We personally train using the Mountain Tough programs, and we believe in it so much that we want to give you 6 weeks for free using code SHEEPBC. That's SHEEPBC. Check out Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. You won't be disappointed. Well, Dylan, we finally connected, brother. It's been a few years, actually. I think the last time that you and I broke bread or maybe had a cool refreshment adult beverage was at the Jurassic Classic in Chilliwack, and that was certainly pre-COVID, I think. So it's been a few years now.
You got a pretty good memory, actually. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was, I believe that was 2018 when we did that right. That Deadhead raffle.
Yeah, it was awesome to have you come out there, and of course, that's the beauty of the modern era, social media and all that kind of crap. And of course, you're dyed-in-the-wool sheep hunter, so I keep a pretty close eye on what you're doing because there's always big shit going down in your neck of the woods. So anyway, welcome to the podcast. Great to connect with you, and just wanted to catch up today. And so we're recording this. Where are you recording from? Where are you coming live from today?
At home in Sparwood, BC.
Awesome. So pretty good sheep in that neck of the woods, and man. You shared something on social media recently that blew my mind. That I guess that multi-layered pedestal. I don't even know what you call that thing, but you had 4 sheep. They were absolutely stunning. They're all stomper rams, absolutely phenomenal. Let's talk a little bit about sheep hunting because you got a story or two to share, I think.
Yeah, I guess going back to that was. A bit of a brainchild more of the taxidermist that I work with. Originally started just because I had a couple. I was living in a place where I didn't have a lot of space. And I kind of poked him about some ideas about putting a couple of them in the corner. And he kind of said, well, you're going to be cramped. And we started kicking around. He kept on pushing me for the idea of a pedestal or something like that. And then he kind of kept poking at me. He says, well, geez, you got the bighorn, you got the stone, and you got the Cali. He says, you're going to be going for a Dall. He says, you're going to want to mash that in there. So I guess I was pretty limited on budget at that time, but they really came through and said, you know what, such a cool idea. Just let us play. They said, whatever your budget is, we'll kind of work with you on that. And they kind of blew it up into something really, really impressive, really cool, and really truly appreciate it. And then, eventually, did finally get that Dall Sheep draw and, was able to put the final piece in there. So pretty lucky, pretty blessed, and a lot of help from a lot of people doing it.
That's awesome, dude. Well, that mount itself is just, maybe I don't know how we're going to share that so people can see it, but it's absolutely phenomenal, man. It's like it's artwork. It's honestly, I've never seen a mount like you see mounts that are pretty ostentatious and they're like full body mounts and there's 4 rams or 5 rams and of course like billions of dollars. But like that thing, just the way it's put together, it's like kind of. Like it's not over the top, but it just looks so well done, and it just, it's probably the coolest mount I've ever seen. And I guess maybe for me, I've never seen a mount like that. You see mounts, and you're like, yeah, seen that. I've never seen that before in my life.
Yeah, when we started really bouncing ideas back and forth, and then kind of started settling on something like that, I kind of started snooping for references and couldn't find anything even close to it, and then. Same with the taxidermist, they just hadn't done anything like it. They hadn't heard of anything like it. And that's, that was something that really, they wanted to do it more for their experience and, to be that something that's really just unique and has never been done before. So Yeah, trying to mash four shoulder mounts into a small space, on an average living room. So it had to be. I just told them it's got to fit inside a 3 foot door so I can get it in and out of the place. And they took up every inch of that to put it together. But it really came together nicely.
Yeah, congratulations, dude. Well, so we know you killed four rams, and Dylan, I'd actually like to kind of hear your genesis of your passion for wild sheep. Like, where did it come from? Was this like something you've had since you've been a little kid, or I know you've been hunting since you've been a young guy, but where did sort of the passion for mountain hunting and wild sheep come from?
I wasn't born around sheep, that's for sure. I think you and I are fellow Southern Alberta prairie boys. So I got a job in southeastern BC here in around 2006, somewhere around there. Moved up, got my residency. I think it was around 2007 or 2008 or something like that. And sheep weren't really ever on my radar, even though I was from Alberta. I did a lot of archery mule deer hunting. Growing up in the prairies, it was archery mule deer give you a 2 month window, and back in the 90s and early 2000s, I mean, that was kind of a heyday for mule deer at that point in time. There was some really, really good deer, and unfortunately it's not what it used to be. I still like to go back that way on occasion, but it was unbelievable, the hunting opportunities that were there at the time. And so that kept me pretty distracted. And then it wasn't until I got over here and then realized that I had to figure out something else. And I puttered around, climbing the hills, chasing elk a little bit. And ended up being just one of the guys I was working with. He said, "Hey, let's try and do a sheep hunt." And uh, that trip, we didn't, to be honest, I don't know if we really knew what we were doing, but it was fun. We climbed up on some rams, looked at them. About that time, I realized I really didn't have a clue what I was looking at. And it was, and it just kind of started rolling from there. Working in the valley here, I've got rams that I get to see quite a bit at work. And just the more you see them, the more it just starts to suck you in. And I don't know, once you climb that first mountain after them, the old saying, either you like it or you'll never do it again. And it sucked me in and just went from there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So that you talk about your first hunt. So how many times were you on the mountain before you were successful? Obviously, you've been very successful. You got it dialed now, and it's same old thing. 90%, 10% of the fishermen catch 90% of the fish, and 90% catch 10%, et cetera, et cetera. But and sheep hunting's like that. There's guys that could kill a ram every single year. They don't. Some do. So when did you crack the code? When were the secret keys to the city revealed, and you sort of you figured out what it took?
Well, I guess it wasn't me cracking the code. It was, all my hunts pretty much. I owe to the, friends and the hunting guys I go with. It's what it really comes in, especially that first one. An older guy that I worked with. Like he knew I was starting to look for sheep a little bit more, and I climbed a few mountains that first year, and and then the next year I started going a little bit more, but then I kind of got tied up with a hunter host hunt that I was for elk, so that really ate into the time quite a bit. But I was actually in a drainage trying to find an elk for the guy I was hosting. And as we were coming out, this older guy was heading in, and it just in such a casual way, he was asking what we were doing and whatever. And he just kind of leaned forward a little bit and he says, "Oh yeah, well, and there may be a legal ram back there." And he kind of winked at me and kind of went on his way, and it stuck with me for a couple of days. And then at work a couple of days later, I kind of talked to him a little bit, and he kind of joked with me about being too busy elk hunting to sheep hunt, and he kind of nudged me a little bit more. And so then I thought on it for another day or two, and then I actually ended up. I called him and I said, "Hey, look, I think there's quite a code here, but it seems like you're telling me maybe I'm okay to actually go and take a look for this ram." And he says, "Only on one condition, as long as I can come along with you."
Oh,
And I
cool.
mean, like this guy's killed a few rams already, and so yeah, we went in there, and I was really happy to have somebody that had a lot of experience because I was still quite green. And sure enough, we went in there, got lucky. A band of, I think it was we saw like 18 rams that day, but it was the
Wow.
third band that we came into. There was, I think, 7 or 8 rams, something like that. They came out of the trees, and just at the right opportunity. There's a lot of timber rams out there, and we just got lucky to catch them coming out. And of course, in all my excitement, I sat up and rested up. I ended up having to rest over the tripod while I was sitting, and thought I was solid, and I ripped that shot. I wouldn't doubt if I ripped it 4 feet over his back. So yeah, but of course, then they go up the mountain, up the mountain, up the mountain, and I was so wound up at that point. I said I got to go redeem myself, and took off up the mountain, not to care for how sketchy it was, and up and up and up. And so finally I ended up, I caught up with them, and they were in the last of the Charlie Brown Christmas trees. And of course, the only ram that wouldn't show himself really was the legal one. He was probably legal by an inch and a half, pretty obvious, but yeah, I couldn't find it. Finally, he stepped out, and I was able to get my redemption shot. But yeah, it was owe it all to that older gentleman. He if it wasn't for him, I'd probably still be stomping around out there looking for that first one. So,
Well, yeah, fair enough. But I'm sure he hasn't gone on the other 3 hunts where you were successful as well. So, yes, something got ignited there. Was that a changing moment for you when you killed that ram? Was it like, obviously you'd been out before? You said you had the previous years, and you hadn't been successful, and was it a bit of a changer for you when you were successful and you got your hands, like you picked that ram up the first time? Did it change the way you think, the way you act, the way you because you take it pretty seriously, I would say, compared to the average dude. So
well, yeah, it was quite well. And I guess that was really only to be honest, that was probably my first real year of actually being a legitimate sheep, attempting to hunt. That previous year, looking back, I wasn't putting any real effort into it. And so to make it happen on that first year, it really made me realize I really had to pull up my socks, so to speak, to, if I wanted to keep doing it. And yeah, but it flipped that switch. And the next year I was planning with a good buddy, and we went, kind of went into a fringe area, tried to get as far away from everybody as we could. And, we did a 3 or 4 day, I think it was 4 nights or something like that, just right off the hop into the next year. I wanted to go big or go home. And, so yeah. And then that worked out too. So it really, real lucky, real early on, and it just solidified everything.
right on. So this the Bighorn was the first year, and then what was next? What did you kill? What was the second ram you ended up killing?
Well, yeah, so that first one was in 2011, and then yeah, that next year, right on the opener, late on the opening day, we found another, like a just a stomper ram, and so I got him that very next year. And that was, real, like I said, just dumb luck. I mean, looking back on it now, I mean, it's kind of the right strategy if you want to find a really good ram. But yeah, I just went into a real fringe area and just happened to kick up. We'd actually even looked over that basin a few hours earlier and proclaimed it the basin of no sheep. And then when we came back late in the day, ended up spotting the buddy he spotted these 4 rams, and I just remember it so vividly too. I'm on the spotter and he's glassing around to see, because we're on this cliff, to see if we could even get down off this cliff to get over to him. It's late in the day already, and I'm watching this ram feed away from me, and I'm playing around videoing through the eyepiece, and then this ram picks his head up and he's got this big old wing sticking out on one side, and I think I've got 0.2 seconds of video footage where I slam it closed afterwards, and we gotta go. And so yeah, but yeah, I raced over there, got over there, shot him half an hour before dark, and just about froze to death pinballing our way out of that basin to try and get back to the tent that night. We didn't know what we were doing. We exhausted ourselves and overexerted, and we should have just got off the steep stuff and then started a fire and stayed there. But we made it happen. But yeah, between those 2011, 2012, then all of a sudden I was hooked, and there was no getting away from it. That's for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So, there's something you just talked about there, and I think that, for anyone that's a aspiring sheep hunter, maybe, wondering where to go, and that's always the question, like, where do you go sheep hunting? And it's like, I'm not a big fan of, like, where the masses go, right? Like, there's the lakes, like, go look up on the internet, and there's the whole plethora of lakes. And if I'm flying in and there's 10 other hunters there, I'm not interested. Now, the key takeaway for me is that if I just hike further than them, I'm going to get away from them. And, but I think, like, you just mentioned these fringe areas, right? It's like I think most successful sheep hunters aren't like getting, like, their buddies aren't telling them go to this spot where everyone else goes, right? Like that. I just don't think that's a high, there might be a high density of rams, so there might be some success there, but like, you've killed all these big rams and you talk about fringe areas, and I get the impression that's probably how you do your hunting, right? Am I right in that statement?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, some of the trips I've done, it's been the hunting buddies that have kind of chosen the area, but all in all, I mean, you still got to go where there's a chance of actually finding rams. But I like the fringe. I like fringe areas so much. I picked an area back a few years ago that there wasn't even a sheep in there. So even when we were getting flown in there, and the pilot said, "Well, if you kick up something, it's probably going to be some monstrous old thing." But yeah, no, I just like the experience. I like I like getting away from people, and no fault to anybody else if they're on that mountain too. And when I get there, but I just like I do like going to areas where there's a higher chance of not seeing people. It isn't just about killing rams. I really enjoy getting out there and having that that isolation, and not worrying that there's going to be somebody else out there. And if you, like I said, if you do run into somebody, well, so be it. There's this always this negative connotation that sheep hunting, and sheep hunters are ornery and miserable and out to get each other. But if you do run into somebody, you try and make it a good experience on the mountain, and usually everybody can work with each other and find their areas to go. And sometimes you meet some really good people, and you make some really good friends too. That's happened on a couple of hunts where you run into people in the middle of nowhere, and it just ends up being one of the best experiences of the trip. So, but yeah, all in all, back to the question, I do look for areas that maybe have less people. Probably it's going to have less sheep, but there's a chance of kicking up something good. So, but it's the experience too. And, trying to go to an area that's not overloaded with people is part of that experience.
Yeah. Right on. So you killed a couple bighorns. How did your foray? The first time you went out, was that a bighorn hunt? The one where you're not successful with your buddy, was that locally for bighorns, or was that for stone sheep?
Yeah, no, that was all bighorns. That was all local. My eyes weren't opened up to the full realm of a big northern hunt until it was 2016, I think. And the guy I went with, he'd had a lot of experience up there, and made me feel really good going with somebody that has had success, good experience, knows what he's doing. And yeah, we did a flying stone sheep hunt, and it was big, it was epic, it was everything that everything you could get in an experience. He got me on a real old ram, way further back than we probably should have been. And yeah, midway through the hunt, we got rained on, we got snowed on. It was 40 hours just stuck in the tent at one point, just getting poured on. Going from worrying about whether we were going to find water to having too much water. We had a silt tarp out catching water to begin with, and then we had to go and tear it down before it tore apart, being full of water. And yeah, and it just an unbelievable, real gut check kind of thing. Made me realize, how small I am, how big the world is, how big that northern BC is, and how much I really love going, and doing this stuff. As hard as it is to get away from the family for that long and be away from the kids and everything, it's just something that gets in your soul. And and packing out rams at the end of something like that, and you get back to your pickup point, and it's just that those moments of being there, you're regretting waiting. You don't want to see that plane or that boat coming to get you, but at the same time, you're already planning the next one. That's what truly transformed me, was that 2016 stone sheep hunt. And it's just kind of really gotten snowballed even more from there.
Yeah, right on. You guys were successful. Did you get a couple rams on that one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, so like I said, the guy I went with, he was really adamant on trying to give me my first stone. I think he had two at that point already, and I mean, he was just adamant that I was going to be the first shooter, and he could have shot one out of the band that I took mine out of. And I think it was more out of his understanding of the sheer distance and effort it was going to take. But he passed on a really nice ram out of that band, and just the way it worked out, because we had a long ways to go back. Through a drainage, up over a mountain, down through another valley, up over another giant mountain, and then down, and just the way it worked out. I mean, we were in snow and fog, actually. Oh, I think it would have been like day 9 or day 8 into a 10-day hunt or something like that, and rolling over this mountain, and just like a miracle. We're literally at the point where we roll over this mountain, drop down into the trees, and we're done. Binoculars were in the pack already, and the skies parted, and here's this stud of a ram just down below us. Of garage sailed our stuff and rolled down there, and he shot a heck of a double broomer ram, just a real stud of a ram. And just added icing to the cake on a phenomenal hunt. So
awesome. And then you end up getting. Was your Dall this past year? It was 23, right? Was it? It was the fall.
Yeah, yeah. This last fall. So.
And that ram is just stupid. Like it's the thing dreams are made of, right? It just tipped out. Beautiful lamb tips a gorgeous ram.
Yeah, he's a. he's yeah. I don't know what else. Yeah, I'm pretty pretty lucky and pretty blessed to run into a ram like that. I know there's an older gentleman that he's part of our club, and he did a lot of northern hunts, and looking for a thin horn that had that look. And he passed. I mean, this was in the 80s and early 90s, and he passed on a lot of phenomenal rams. And he's always bugging me that's the ram that he's going to bust into my house one day and take that. It was guys that worked there a lot harder than I have, and covered a lot of ground and worked really hard for it, that haven't been blessed with that opportunity that I was. So running around like that, it's I realize how damn lucky I am to see something like that on the mountain, let alone kill it.
Right on. So obviously you've seen a lot of rams, you've done a lot of hunting. Is there you take one and you say, this is the one I want to relive? Which one is it? Is there, and that's impossible. I know it's impossible, right? It is, because everyone is special, right? Like, and I'm not even going to try to pretend that I've experienced what you have, but the few times I've been on, sheep kills, it's just magical, right? And everyone holds a special place in my heart, but you can only pick one. So is it your first? Is it the last? Is it the next one? I don't know. What is it? So,
gee, I got a toss up tie, I guess. So, that Dall is definitely like the whole northern experience is just something that I don't. If you tell me I can't ever do that again, I may as well hang up my boots and go pout in a corner for the rest of my life. Just the way everything worked out, and just the whole epic experience of that Dall Sheep hunt was fantastic. And then I guess just be the one that sticks in my mind just so much. And it wasn't that it was this crazy big epic hunt, but a bighorn I took in 2020. Just the circumstances around were just. It was an hour of the most tense moments of my life. Well, it was a day and a half, but it was just such an intense thing for me. For physically what it took. My buddies couldn't believe how exhausted I was, and I think it was just because of the pure emotion I went through all of that. So I don't know if I could pick between those two.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. So you kind of done it all, man. You've got these incredible trophies. You've been out. What's next? Like, is there? So there's the whole, I guess, FNAWS or SLAM or whatever. Any aspirations for a desert, or just not really on the radar? What's your?
If you pull my name, there is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think the missus might. She might be an ex-missus if I remortgage the place to try and to make the desert hunt happen. So just playing the raffle odds. I mean, it'd be fantastic to go and do it. It's something I really want to experience. Maybe at some point it might be me just tagging along with somebody else as they do it. I think that's a lot of what it is experiencing all these different things. That's going and hunting bighorns around here, and it's really cool because it is something that a person can do as a day hunt, and you see some really cool stuff going up north. And I've flown in and flown out, and I've flown in and hiked out, and I've jet boated in, and I've done a little bit of horseback stuff. I just love it all, and just the experience. And I guess other than around here, I don't think I've been to the same place twice. When I go on these big trips, it's always someplace different. So that's more it right now, is just seeing. There's so much country up there. It's so big, it's so vast, and I'm just always wanting to see what's over that next mountain. It's really so it draws me, and I just want to keep seeing more of it regardless. And even going and going and hunting the kind of, it's almost like coulee country, that some of that Fraser River system, and seeing the cool stuff there. It's completely different, desert, dry. You're worried about water like you've never been worried before in your life, and just a really, just to see it all. So I mean, a desert, that'd be fantastic to see. Whether me pulling the trigger, probably not, but it'd be really cool to tag along.
So, I'm kind of curious. You've done it all, really, and honestly, I was thinking about it as we're talking, and the BC Slam, right? Everyone talks about the BC Slam. There's some of the old boys that did it, right? Like there's, but how many guys do you know under 40 that have done a BC Slam, like, or like have done a BC Slam in the last 10 years? I think the number would be infinitesimally small.
Yeah, well, and it's only getting harder too. I don't know offhand. Maybe the one guy. I guess too. Yeah, especially dude. I'll have to see what he's classifying. Whether that was a Fannin or a Dall. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's so hard. I mean, Cali's either you got super long odds draw. The stuff that was open is still open. Those Calis, they just, for them to make full curl, it's so hard. Like the genetics aren't there for them to typically turn up enough. I mean, to run into a ram that actually, is an actual full curl ram or get those draws, and then now with bighorns, it's getting even harder. Like. I was very fortunate to be able to do the bighorn hunting around here when I could before it went to LEH, and and then too now I was even just looking at the Dall Sheep draws. The odds are getting out there. I think the TAT used to be it was like a 5-6 to 1 when I started putting in, and it took me right from I think around 2010 or something like that is when I started putting in. And I mean, now you look at them just in the reg books. I think it's like, your best chance at a Dall is still like 30 something to 1 draw odds. And I mean, that's no guarantee you're going to actually shoot one. So no, just really, really lucky. And like I said, it's been the people I'm hunting with. That's kind of been the key in all this. And I just happen to be lucky to either win a flip on a coin or something like that, and happen to be lucky to tag along to begin with to make some of this stuff happen. So
right on. Okay, so I'll throw a scenario out. Well, I guess not really a scenario, but do you need to be the guy behind the trigger? Like I know you don't. I know that, but you've accomplished so much, and of course there's a lot of gratification when you harvest an animal, you do it yourself. Well, you get to pull the trigger, and I've been on lots where, I've been on a number of hunts where the other guy's pulling the trigger, and I've had the opportunity a few times on my own. Do you feel now like, do you still have that itch where you're like, you really, 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 really want to be the guy on the trigger, or are you kind of happy and you're just as happy to see someone else doing it? And I know you're like a very genuine or generous person. Like you're not the guy that's going to bump someone off to kill something. But is it as gratifying just being there to see it, or do you still feel like no, I want to be the guy behind the trigger for sure?
There's still the odd ram that really gets the heart going. I mean, that's what drives us all. Is you just when you see a ram and just all of a sudden you get that skip the heartbeat kind of moment. But I mean, at the same time, like, whether it was, the guy I went with, we flipped over, we saw that big Dall, a couple days before the season opened and flipped on it. And I had this immense guilt for the next day and a half that I actually wanted. And I he was fantastic about it. But if he would have won that flip and had the chance at that ram, I would have been just as happy. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, if two people are on a hunt and they're working together, hunting together, it's their ram. Doesn't matter who really cuts the tag on it. It's you're both part of the experience. Pulling the trigger is just a minor part of it. Just living that whole hunt experience is just so fantastic, and that's really what it comes down to. If I ever get to the point where I'm looking at just the next level ram and my heart doesn't skip a beat, I'm going to get a little bit worried. But whether I pull the trigger or not, that's not a big deal. Like it's just getting out there and enjoying it and seeing the sights, so to speak, and hopefully somebody fills a tag so we're eating some sheep meat, because Lord, it's good.
Yeah, it absolutely is, isn't it? Okay, so you and I had a little chat about what we're going to talk about on this podcast, and I didn't go here, but it actually seems kind of timely, and we don't have to talk about it, but do we want to touch on Region 4 LEH and that whole thing? It's politics for sure. I'm not into beating up on the government, but like, you live in the Kootenays, you hunt in the Kootenays. Do you want to talk a little bit about it, or you just want to leave that one alone for the time being? We don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
We can touch into it a little bit, and I mean, it is the reality, and it's something that the Wild Sheep Society was definitely, definitely working to try and avoid. And I mean, you guys are kind of one of the main avenues for being able to communicate with the regional managers, with the provincial managers, and I know you guys were fighting for hunters on that one, and it's too bad that it did actually go to LEH. Unfortunately, and there's just so many issues that are. I don't want to dive into this too long. I talked about it for hours on end for a long time when it was still up for debate. I guess in all reality, a lot of the meta populations within Region 4, we weren't seeing a disproportionate reduction in Class 4 rams. We were seeing general population declines in some of them. We're not hunting ewes. We're not hunting lambs. We're not hunting Class 1, 2, Class 1, Class 2, big Class 3 rams. But we were seeing a reduction in some of those meta populations in that whole demographic, and it is really easy to limit hunters as one way to manage. When regional managers are handicapped by limited resources, limited abilities, things like that. But it seems like that gets leaned on quite heavily and quite quickly. You guys worked really hard. You brought in that Marco Festibianca. He did it was a BC Wildlife Federation. Anyways, the research really showed that it wasn't going to change anything in the region here, and it happened anyways. It's really hard, when sheep hunters are the best conservation group out there, in my opinion. They're putting more work and more money into our natural resources than any other group, and they're the first ones to raise their hand and say, yeah, we realize that we need to limit ourselves when it's necessary. But I don't feel that was a necessary route at that point. And I think we've got bigger issues in the Kootenays right now, and a lot of the hunter conservationist groups are stepping up and doing some big projects on their own. And you guys are doing a ton of stuff here as well. Taking the ball and where the ministry can't or won't do stuff. Conservation groups are doing it because we want to see we want to see sheep on the landscape. We want to see healthy populations on the landscape, regardless of whether we can hunt them or not. But it's tough. I don't want to be able to shoot a ram every year. I just want to be able to go out there with a tag in my pocket and be able to walk around and enjoy it and yeah, LEH was a really hard one. I just felt like we weren't at that point yet, and
Yeah.
it went there, and that's
Yeah, and here we are, right? So we're a year in. Any, you know, anything you're seeing or hearing in region that is there any benefits? Are there any downside? Or just it is what it is? It's just a shitty deal, and the government's done their thing, and we're just living with it. So I'm just wondering if in region there's any talk, about. And there are concerns too, right? Because getting LEH right's not easy, right? Like, you now you start limiting it, and there's an issue where you can issue not enough tags, and then there's an under harvest, and then they're like you start bumping the number up, and then all of a sudden 1 year the harvest. And I know we're only 1 year in, so that's not going to be the case. But I'm just wondering if you're hearing anything out of region about having gone to LEH the first year. Certainly no talk of coming out of LEH from the government, other than that's what sheep hunters want. But there's this sort of propensity for once you go on LEH, it's there for life or worse, right? So
I don't. I mean, I'd love to see it not stay on LEH forever. I think you and I know that that's going to be a long, tough slope to climb. There's a real funny dynamic that's going on right now because most of the zones are pretty limited. There's only 1 or 2 tags, and then we've got a couple of zones that this year the first year in the Elk Valley, they gave out 54 LEH tags for one particular zone. And, everybody's scratching their head when they're saying, well, part of the reasoning that they had was that it was to, improve hunter experience in the field. Well, and then all of a sudden you've got 54 people. And then this year, now they've jumped it up to 68 people. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand that one. And I mean, the adjacent zone, they put one, they've got 1 tag. And I mean, there's some politics that are going on with that, but I don't know. It's a burr under the saddle. It's here to stay, unfortunately. I don't know if it's going to really do anything to. I really don't feel that in most of these areas it's going to do anything to actually improve sheep populations. Is what it really comes down to, and then but in the meantime, it's going to just make it harder and harder for guys that really actually want to go out there and sheep hunt to get a tag. The LH system as it is right now is, at $6 an application, that if anything, that putting LEH in Region 4 created a bunch more, supposed sheep hunters, because guys that really want to hunt sheep end up, they put their aunts and their uncles and their nieces and nephews and everybody else in because it's only $6 to apply. So now all of a sudden you've got a lot of tag holders that really did not got no real interest in, or minimal interest in actually hunting sheep per se, but they've got an uncle or whatever that's really into it. And so you see those issues that are cropping up now, unfortunately, and it's only going to lead to draws just getting harder and harder to actually get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Anyway, sorry to lob that at you, but I thought we touched on it a little bit, and I thought and I know you were pretty vocal, you're pretty involved in that, and the society was as well, and a lot of advocates in Region 4, like Fish and Game clubs and BCWF member clubs, did were pretty active against the ministry on this one. And so it's good to touch base on it and have some dialogue. And I know you and I certainly talked about it when this was all going down a couple of years ago. And so it's interesting. So I appreciate your perspective on it. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the Kootenays, what's going on with with your club, and just touch on base on what's new with you guys, what's happening, any sheep projects you guys want to talk about, or any issues for wild sheep. And certainly I know one thing, we're on the podcast, and I guess it's not maybe the place for it, but if there's a opportunity where, the society can work with you guys, right, to support wild sheep conservation efforts in Region 4. That's an area that we've identified. I know we get a bit of a bad rap in Region 4. Like, you guys got to do a better job. And the truth is we want to do a better job. We certainly do. We've got a director now in Region 4, which is really exciting to me that we've got someone on the boots on the ground there. We haven't had anyone there for years. And but anyway, let's talk about what's going on with the club and just get some updates there and hear what's going on. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Swarovski Optic. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Swarovski Optic, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems.
I guess in Region 4, there is a lot that is actually going on. Again, some of it is definitely led by the conservation clubs. I guess I could dive right into some of that right off the bat. So in Sparwood here, their club has actually been spearheading a collaring and habitat assessment study, and like the Elkford Club as well has been kind of assisting in that a little bit. But just put some collars on some sheep in the Elk Valley West and got some phenomenal data. That one is just wrapping up. It's into year 5. A lot of information. Those collars just end up telling us so much. It shows. It really opens up a lot, of insight into some of these critical stuff, especially lambing areas. Where these ewes are going, how they're utilizing burns and things like that, and how different changes like burns actually affect their movement. Phenomenal stuff. And then there's some very preliminary stuff, but there might be some more collars going on some sheep in Region 4 here, like especially in the Elk Valley. We've got the effects of the coal mines, and I mean it's a real. The coal mines are a real hot topic. In a way, they cause a lot of disturbance, but it's interesting to see how the sheep are reacting to that. Sheep seem to naturally be attracted in some ways to disturbance. So, I mean, we've got some sheep they're moving onto some mines that have never, those areas have never had sheep before. So there's talk about getting some collars on them, and what sort of carrying capacity those locations have. We're working with tech on, and on how we're actually going to, how we're going to mitigate the potential issues that are going to be associated with those disturbances. There's been a lot of invasive species plant work. The East Kootenay Invasive Species Council, we've been working with them for quite a few years. Some of the burns that were planned to do happen down in the Bull River area a few years ago. They started into looking at burning that, and then they realized a lot of that stuff, a lot of those wintering ranges, especially, they were just infested with invasives. And I mean, as you and I know, like, you burn that and you're just going to get nothing but invasives, non-palatable wintering range. So that had to be treated first. And we didn't want to see the Elk Valley become that same level of issue. So yeah, it's been 4 or 5 years now. The Invasive Species Council, we've been working with them to really try and hit these jump off points. Went and did a lot of inventories on where the problem ends, at trailheads and how far into these trailheads, and then working back from there to hopefully catch some of these issues before they actually get into some of these key wintering ranges. The high elevation windswept grassy slopes in the valley here, like they're of such critical importance that we can't let that get away from us. Further out from the Elk Valley, we're starting to see some smoke. There's been a few burns that have happened. One of the local bands, they've been really spearheading some work. That Golden Club They've been doing some phenomenal stuff up in up that way. That's the epitome of a conservation club. Hunters and outdoorsmen going out and making things happen. They've leveraged a little bit of club money and got a private contracted biologist doing a lot of the heavy lifting and really utilizing that grant money. And I mean, they're doing some phenomenal elk and sheep work along that highway up there. For a sheep herd that realistically is never going to get hunted. And that, like I said, that's the epitome of hunters as conservationists. We want to see them radium. There's all the tons of issues with sheep getting hit on the highway there, and then we're finally getting some fencing and a pass going in there. West of Fernie, between Fernie and Elko, we've got a lot of sheep getting hit on the highway there. We've got a biologist that's just really passionate, a private contracted biologist that's doing a lot of work studying that, trying to see if we can keep sheep off the highways there. There's so many issues, so many things that can be done, so many things that are hopefully going to be done. When it comes to the Wild Sheep Society, I think, unfortunately, you guys get a bad rep for things that you have no control over. And some of that, it seems like it originally stemmed from the idea that you guys have the say on where money gets spent when it comes to, that premier tag, which trying to change that narrative, because I mean, you only have a small hand in that, but there is a lot of premier tag rams that get taken out of the valley, and guys are saying, well, hey, where's that money spent? And that's where, we did that one brews night here locally, trying to get that information out there, showing where you guys are spending the money here and what the work you are doing, and there's a lot to be done, and I think you guys you're doing everything you can to try and reach out, and it's on us as a region to say, hey, here's an opportunity, and don't worry, I'm definitely going to be hitting you guys up. I've got my own little thinning project that I want to get rolling here, and I'm definitely going to be hitting you guys up once I got the stepping stones in place for it.
That's awesome. And I guess the key takeaway there is, we're keen to work and keen to support and collaborate and do anything we can. And, maybe there's some bad blood over the years, and, maybe there's whatever perceptions, and I'm not going to discount any of those. And maybe some of those were true in the past. But anything that we can do to support Region 4 sheep, like we pushed hard on that LEH. And the biggest thing that kind of pissed us off more than anything was, okay, if you're going to shut it down, and you're absolutely and again, we fought for it not to be, but you damn well, government better be doing their job and, doing what they can to rehabilitate those sheep, bring them back so that we can open the season up to a general open season, ideally, right? And just felt that there was just not enough investment from government. Again, it's, there's just never enough money from government. I get it. There's limited resources and all that sort of stuff. So, I just,
yeah,
go ahead.
I don't know. At this day and age, I've been involved just enough to actually see how much potential money there is out there. When it comes to some of these projects being shelved because of lack of money, it's starting to really chat me a little bit, because I think that there is so much potential out there. There's so much money out there. It can all be done. It's just a matter of somebody taking the lead to make it happen. And I mean, we need the official government stamp of approval on it. I think we got some great regional biologists within a lot of the regions. They need to not be handcuffed. We need, if they've got the data, they got the information, they've got to be able to just. I've been bugging ours for years, Irene. Like, write a wish list of anything and everything you could possibly do, and we'll try and make the money happen. And it just frustrates me. I think you guys have a fantastic recipe for fundraising. Being involved with some of the clubs, I do a lot of different fundraising things, and then too, you just use that and leverage. There's some big pots out there, HCTF, Fish and Wildlife Compensation Fund. There's 3 or 4 fantastic big pots. There's private donors. There's so much money out there. I hate hearing that there's not enough money to do this stuff, because I think there is. It's just the ambition and the leadership to make it happen. So,
Mhm.
and I mean, for anybody in Region 4 that's crying that they don't get enough Wild Sheep Society money, involvement, work, whatever, the Wild Sheep Society is made pretty much of volunteers and fundraising money. Like, it's on us to do it. If
Mhm.
Region 4 needs something, we've got to be the ones to speak out and say that we need it done, and we reach out. The society executive, they can only know so much. BC is a huge province. There's so many, and I mean, so many species, so many different problems within different regions. It's up to each region to speak out, take the lead, and make things happen. And I mean, that's what's happening here in Region 4. A lot of the clubs are trying to really take the bull by the horns and make things happen, do what they can. And it's just a matter of the will of if you want to see it and you want to do it, you gotta. I used to be a complainer, and then I had a guy call me out and say, like, really, what are you doing about it? You're bitching. What are you really doing about it? I don't want to hear it unless you're actually telling me what you're doing to make it better. And it opened my eyes, and it's really what it comes down to.
Mhm. Yeah, no. Yeah, absolutely. And it's easy to fall into that too. But I will argue that you do a hell of a lot more for wild sheep than most people. So, and maybe that was in the old days where you're bitching and not, you felt like you weren't doing enough, but, you do a ton, and, just your messaging and, yeah, it's inspiring, dude. And, I guess that's a one cool thing that for me that resonates is, I feel Region 4 clubs are really active. They really care. Like you said, you started listing off a laundry list of the different, I know Fernie was out doing a slashing project a couple of weeks ago, and just, yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
it's
inspiring.
that one, and that one. I forgot about that one. My apologies to Fernie. Like, they're going to roll that one into. It's looking like it's going to be a 5-year project, and that's where the ministry already has the prescriptions. They just didn't have the money, the ability, whatever it was. Fernie's picking up the ball, and they're saying, "Hey, let's make this a 5-year project. We're going out there and we're going to complete these prescriptions. If they need to be updated a little bit, so be it. We'll contribute to the funding. We'll leverage our money to make more funding. We're going to get boots on the ground." I think the BHA is involved with that as well. All it, and there, people are at the point. People that really care about the resource are at the point where they're saying, you know what, government isn't going to do it all for us. We're gonna have to do some of it ourselves, and we're gonna have to be, lead by example. And yeah, again, just one more. I'm sure I'm forgetting other stuff too. There's a lot of stuff going on. Trying to keep my pulse on all of it and stay involved. But yeah, again, another great thing that club is initiating.
Yeah, well, and yeah, and I wasn't trying to point that out. I just happen to be familiar with that one, and yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on, and there's a ton of clubs doing a ton of different things, and yeah, it's really exciting to see. So, what's on your radar? Like, what do you think is a priority in region for you that you'd like to see this to help Region 4 sheep? And I know it's a huge area and a lot of things going on there, but if you could wave your magic wand and say, "Let's go fix this problem," what would you pick for a project?
Uh, I guess it's, you know what, I think the on the ground projects they're starting to roll. I think we going circling back. Like, I think our regional managers, habitat and wildlife managers, need to write that ultimate wish list without inhibitions and without concern.
Mhm.
Instead of it being this like, well, this is what we can do, like, and here's our limits. Write that ultimate wish list. I'm not going to pretend that I know what needs to be done. I'm just guessing. I can add a little bit of anecdotal, like what I see in my area and things like that. But I mean, we talk about science-based management. It's the biologists that are supposed to have those. They're the professionals. I want them to lead that charge, and I think that's ultimately what we need. I think that's what every region needs. And then I think we need to have the removal of politics being involved with that, so that these overarching issues can really be resolved. It's got to be, obviously industry is going to have to be involved. They're going to have to sit at the table. You can't have these discussions without having all stakeholders there. But I mean, it's got to be something where ultimately it's legislated that wildlife and habitat is managed based on the science that we have, that based on the information that we have, not based on socialism, not based on politics and things like that. It's got, and then clubs and groups can support that. Hunters can
Mhm.
support that, and it'll be a lot easier for hunters if there's a rationale saying like, oh, okay, yeah, hunting needs to be limited. We're going to be the first ones to put our hand up and say, yes, we agree. Let's support. But we need that limit removed so that we can really understand it. Like I said, I can talk about predation issues in certain areas or invasive issues in certain areas, but we ultimately need the people that it's their job, it is their livelihood, it is their profession. They need to write that wish list of what they can see needs to be done, and then make things happen, and then monitor it, improve on it, and keep that ball rolling. And not have excuses, oh, like, oh, we're limited on funds, we're limited on resources. If they're limited on funds, come to the different organizations. We're not going to check off every box on that list, but let's prioritize it and make the top ones happen. And that's
Yeah.
that's that's ultimately what this region needs, and that's what every region really needs.
So, is it a leadership issue? Is it a government leadership issue? Is it, we know there's some good regional bios out there. Like we work with them every day, right? But is it a middle management? And this is not a rant to piss on the government, intention, but how do we see that? How do we, like you said, you've gone to regional bios and said, hey, what can we do? What's the priority here? And it's not really happening. So do you think is it coming from the top at the minister's level? Is it middle level? Is it on the ground? Kind of where
I
do
do
you
think
see it?
I do think regional biologists end up getting handicapped and handcuffed by their abilities, and it. I mean, if I went to work every day and said, you know what, you're not going to get a quarter of the tools you need to do your job, at some point in time, I'd probably get a little bit worn down. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, and yeah, it just that frame of mind gets set up that there's limits. There's only so much they can do, and then just and I mean, I don't. I would never want to be a regional biologist just because I don't think you'd ever make anybody happy. There's always going to be somebody that's going to be mad at you and sending an email saying how much, or a phone call saying how they're not appreciating how you're managing something. Everybody's got their opinion on it, but you know I think it they need the support from at the provincial level, and they need to not be restricted. They need to, if they've got the hard, fast information that says this is the best course of approach right now, they need to not be limited by that. They have wildlife and habitat management has to be a legislated thing, and it's got to be at arm's length from politics. We
Mhm.
right from the grizzly bear issue. It's just we're seeing it over and over. And as a regional biologist, I'm sure that they're just stuck in this rut of realizing that there's only so much that they can, do, because that's just the way it's been. And, funding gets cut more. They try to get projects off the ground, and it just gets harder and harder. And there's so many other, trying to get a burn going. That's the project that I'm kind of working on right now. It'd be great to burn a bunch of stuff, but it's so much red tape. It's so hard that, I'm already conceded to the point, like, maybe it's better off we'd start by thinning it and see if we can grow to something that's burning later, just because it's so hard. I mean, for that to be your daily job of just like, nope, you're limited here. Nope, you're limited there. You don't have enough funding. How do you do that job effectively? And we're talking about a big job. We need people in those positions that are willing to think big, say what needs to be done, write that wish list, and not be hindered from pursuing it.
Yeah, and then all the bullshit politics that goes with that, right? Oh, you can't do this because, there's this, or, and as we all know, wildlife management's much bigger than just wildlife, right? There's industry, there's special interest groups, there's all kinds of different concerns. First Nations, it's much bigger than just, if we did what's right for wildlife, it'd be pretty easy, right? It'd be like, okay, well, we're not going to build, this massive, parking lot there, a solar plant there, or whatever the case may be, right? But there's so many moving parts. And again, I've heard people speak this, I don't know, Scott Ellis from JBC, but putting a value on wildlife, there has to be a value on wildlife. Until we do that, like if it's just a resource that really doesn't have any value, the renewable resource, then mining will always come first, and all these other applications. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against industry. That has to coexist. I get that for sure. But for years, wildlife has come at the expense of forestry and a whole bunch of other industries, right? And again, not anti-industry, but let's just keep an eye on the ball here with wildlife too. Don't forget about that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Wildlife is an afterthought. Habitat tends to be an afterthought. All those are, it really comes down to dollars. If it isn't valued, and a real dollar that, a tangible, meaningful dollar amount put on it, the only other way is legislated. And, neither of those things are really happening at a meaningful level, not in the pace that it needs to happen. I mean, we've got, like Together for Wildlife there's steps in the right directions and things like that, but it needs to happen at a faster pace. I'm not saying that it has to, wildlife and habitat has to trump industry, but it's got to be at that level playing field, so it's got an equal chance, or else it's going to go by the wayside. And talking about, a BC resident going on a sheep hunt is going to be kind of like the exciting thing. I was super fortunate to live in what I'm going to look back, I'm sure, as saying the glory days. We're going the wrong way here in BC, and it's really hard to see. And people don't have to, volunteer hours every day and things like that. Just every hunter, everybody that's passionate about wildlife and the habitat and natural stuff, they just have to get a little bit more involved. It isn't going to be, 10 guys that make the difference. It's going to be the 50,000, 100,000 people that actually take a few minutes here and there and attend meetings, talk to their MLA, just get engaged, show up for when there's a thinning or slashing project, show up to, the local club meeting and just get just a little bit more involved. People don't have to spend their, all their free time trying to volunteer to try and make a difference. It just takes everybody doing a little bit. And that's what it's going to really come down to. We have to make our wildlife and the habitat that they live on just a little bit more important, so they're on a level playing field with industry and with all these other issues, so it's not this afterthought that gets washed away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said, man. Really well said. I kind of feel in BC that we had, like they call it the Serengeti of the North, right? Affectionately known as. And I feel like we just had such an abundance of resource, like wildlife, that we almost took it for granted that it was going to be there. And then, we kept doing all this other shit. Like, and I don't think it's a hunter harvest issue personally. Maybe some regional biologists or the government would argue with me on that, but I feel like, but there's all the resource extraction and in the industry and all these different other things that have been put forward in front of wildlife, and we never really invested in wildlife because they're like, well, we got so much of it. Why would we ever? It's like the rich man never worries about his wealth until he has no money, right? And now we're kind of going, oh shit, maybe we kind of went a little too far on this, and now we're having to play catch up, right? And the BCWF has put out those infographics on where the jurisdictions have spent money, like states and provinces, and BC is just woefully behind. Again, I hate to harp on the government, but they give us lots of ammo. But you look at all our wildlife tags, that doesn't even the revenue from that doesn't, and doesn't go to cover. It doesn't go to all the wildlife. Some of it goes to general coffers. Like he mentioned $6 for a frickin' LEH. Like, why wouldn't you put in for everything? Because like it's free effectively, right? Like it's the cost of a Starbucks, right? And they haven't touched it. And we've talked to the government about that, and there's not really an appetite to increase it. It's like shit. Like I'd happily pay 5 times that amount or 10 times that amount, especially if that money was going to the resource. You charge me a hell of a lot more, and I'd still probably put in for all that stuff. And I'm not a wealthy guy, but it's just to me that's the cheapest donation you can make for wildlife. And then on top of it, you get to go hunting on top of it, right? If you're lucky. So yeah. Anyway, that's through my crystal ball.
That like the LEH stuff and dedicated funding models, money that go, money, LEH applications, hunting licenses, fishing licenses. Basically, they're a user tax, and that user tax should go right back to the resource that the users are using or to wanting to use. I mean, if anybody's sheep hunting nowadays, they dump their pack on the ground. They got thousands of dollars worth of stuff in there. A $6 application for a sheep, for a sheep draw and a $60 tag. Like that's the cheapest thing in their pack. If hunters knew that their LEH application money was actually going right back to the resource, they'd be willing to pay. Like anybody that really cares, anybody that's a real hunter, they'd pay 10 times over that. You could have your basic $6, sheep LEH. You could put a $44 HCTF conservation fee on that. And I mean, the real sheep hunters they'd pay it 10 times over, knowing that it would actually go right back to the resource. And unfortunately, that's not the case. It's really too bad. Like our provincial spending budget is, I think it's like 0.89% of the provincial budget actually goes back to, water, lands, fish, wildlife. It's atrocious. 30 years ago, it was at least 5%. We're down to less than 1%. Per person in BC, we're spending abysmally small amounts, compared to other regions around us. You look at I don't know, Oregon or Montana or some of these states and other areas that they're spending way more. You break it down by square kilometer. We're spending pennies compared to what these other areas are. And we've got more resources out there than ever. Than any of these places. Yet we're spending so little, and it really comes down to people saying to the government that we need to put more money in. We need to invest in this more. And if hunters and conservationists don't speak up, the trend's going to continue, and the hunting getting phased out is going to continue. People really have to voice that to their political candidates, all parties. They have to know it's an important, relevant issue.
Yeah. No, well said for sure.
You're getting me
well,
all
brother.
You're getting me
I
all
know.
wound up. We were supposed to be talking about sheep stories and stuff, and you're getting me all wound
I know,
up.
I know, I know. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good though. It's good to have these discussions, and honestly, it's good to have a kind of discussion. I like talking about you too because I know you and I have talked enough. You're super passionate. You put your money where your mouth is. You're always money, but also your time and effort. Really, like that's where you thrive. Is you're always out there leading the charge and doing a lot, and so it's inspiring, dude. And I've always respected your perspective and input and what you do for wild sheep. And so we just got to keep pushing, keep doing a better job. And I think you said it best earlier is people get involved, like whether it's with your local club or the society or a BCWF or whoever, local guide outfitter or just a volunteer cleanup or whatever. But, people need to start having a voice for wildlife, and we need to be more vocal because, it's pretty clear, since I've been around, wildlife is just not a priority. And, we don't even have to get partisan. We can go back to the Liberal days. We can pick on the NDP. It doesn't really matter. Both were woefully inadequate for wildlife, in my opinion. And I think that, until British Columbians start either seeing wild sheep or certain species of animals, wild sheep or not, disappear off the landscape, then we go, shit, maybe we should have done a bit more. Like when you drive through Golden and you don't see any rams along the side of the highway, you go, why aren't they there? It's like, because they don't fucking exist, right? Like it's, I think we really need to start taking it a bit more seriously. So I think you said it best earlier, man.
Yeah. It isn't down to one particular party. The region, the East Goonie Wild Association hosted a town hall in Cranbrook just 3-4 weeks ago, really just trying to get the information out to hunters, get outdoorsmen engaged. The political party candidates were all invited, and there was some staggering statistics that were offered up. Regardless of party, I think the one that stood out the most was that in the last roughly, don't quote me exactly, but this is pretty close. In about 30 years, the government has, in whichever party it was, has stated in their official documentation that there needs to be a need or they've promised a dedicated funding model and increased funding. I think it was 15 or 17 times. And it's just never happened. Mm-hmm. A lot of political promises that never happen. And that's what it really comes down to is holding the administration that is in power to these political promises and their own words, their own documentation. It has to happen, and otherwise we're, like I said, that less than 1% is of funding is gonna be cut, exponentially smaller and smaller until it's just a complete afterthought. It's a scary thing, but we have to speak up. We have to get louder. We have to change this direction.
Yeah. Was it Aldo Leopold, or was it, who was it? Roosevelt or someone? Wildlife cannot speak for themselves. Therefore, we must and we will, or something. I can't remember which one said it, but it was
something to that effect. I'm not a well-versed man, but it's something to that effect. So,
yeah. Well, I think on that note, we can wrap it up, brother. Any parting thoughts? I think there's a lot of wisdom in what we talked about. A lot of great sheep stories too. We didn't talk all politics, but anything for the closing thoughts here? So.
Just trying to think. We were supposed to be talking sheep stories and stuff, and you got me all wound up here. So you got me all flustered.
Yeah, you gotta go back to the wife, and she's gonna have to talk you off the ledge.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna sleep for a couple hours now. So, no, I think I remember it would have been around 2018 or something like that. And it was around that 2017, 2018. And I remember opening up a Wild Sheep Society magazine, and I think it stated in there that the current, the current Wild Sheep Society membership was, I think it was like some astronomically small number, like 500 people or something like that. And it blew my mind to realize, like for how much the society is trying to do for the research, and I mean, it at that time it was purely volunteers. It was just volunteers trying to make something better. I remember, like, I think I had a canvas or something like that of a ram I'd taken a picture of, and I tried to drum up a little bit of extra, a little bit more uh, participation with, and new memberships. So I did a little draw or something like that, and it brought a few more people into the Wild Sheep Society, and that was only like, yeah, 6 years ago. Now you guys are pushing for, you gotta drive for 2,000. Like, that's fantastic to see, and that's the right direction, and I hope that ball keeps rolling. You guys are doing the work that needs to be done, not only on the landscape, but also in the back rooms, making those tough meetings, and it's great to see. And I hope the ball keeps rolling. I hope it only grows from there. And I hope it's not another 6 years before I get to get, you guys keep planning all these events when I'm working, and unfortunately, being a poor working man, it's not easy to get out there and make all these things. I've always had plans. Actually, you know what? And it was COVID. It was the COVID year. I was actually, we'd committed. There was a couple of us couples that were heading out. We had our tickets, we had everything, and it was literally the day before when everything got canceled, and then it just hasn't lined up ever since. But one of
Yeah.
these days we'll have drinks face to face, and make it happen again.
Yeah, no, awesome. I appreciate all you do, brother. It's inspiring, and yeah, just keep it up. And it's funny. It was interesting. I monitor membership pretty closely, and you texted me. You're like, really? Is this number right? And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like, that's how many members we got. And you're like, that's bullshit. And you're like, and then I seen you, like, your stuff was exploding everywhere, and you're like, yeah, doing this, and literally that's the biggest bump in membership we've seen. Like, percentage wise, since I've joined, it was you pushing that. I was like, I think we got like 100 members out of that. It was huge, man. Like, I could not believe how much you moved the needle in terms of the membership. It was crazy.
Well, just I mean, you're running one of those groups that once you get sucked in, you're in. It's
Yeah.
and it. So no, you're doing great stuff, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully the next, we can be talking about the push to 4,000 shortly, and go from there. Because if anybody really
Yeah.
cares, definitely a group that that Wild Sheep Society is something that people should really consider strongly supporting. So you guys are doing great work.
I appreciate it, dude. Well, thank you so much for this tonight. And so I have no idea what your fall plans are. You probably don't either, because LEH is not closing for another 3 weeks here. But I look forward to having you on again, and we'll talk about maybe that desert sheep that you're going to go and kill or something like that. So.
Well, I'm not going to rely on LEH, so I'm going to go north and stomp around some stone sheep country, I think, and see what happens. So I'm not just I can't go without it. So you're not going to hold me back from as long as there's a sheep hunt I can go on. I'm going somewhere. So
Awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's awesome to connect again.
it was good talking to you. We'll have to do this again.